Hello and welcome again to the BrightEdge webinar, Sustainable Content Marketing. My name is Eric Newton. I'm the Vice President of Marketing Demand Generation here at BrightEdge, and I'll be your host today. Before we get started, I want to talk about a condition that many of you might have experienced if you're in the content business, which I think everybody on the call probably is. So you might have content burnout if you experience a lack of resources, if you don't have enough writers and editors and designers, if you feel the pressure of regular content production cadence, and if you feel the pressure to always keep your content fresh, if you have to chase news trends and chase trends in your industry, if you have technology changes that impact what you're doing and you have to report on the technology itself, if you have to chase experts in your company to get them to write or even to approve content you've already written for them, then you might have content marketing burnout. And last of all, if you don't have the right technology and tracking in place, you might not even be sure what is working. All of these conditions and signs might lead you to ask yourself, am I just doing content for content's sake? Today, it is my pleasure to introduce to you your presenter, Steve KRULL, the CEO and co-founder at BFO. Steve?
Thank you, Eric, and thank everybody for attending, joining me today. What I hope to do is impart a little bit of wisdom, some things that we've learned over the years that can help you improve your content marketing programs and make you a better, stronger content marketer. So jumping in right away, following on to what Eric had to say, let's think about sustainable content marketing. And we've put this in an analogy that reads sun, wind, and water. And what we think sustainable content marketing is that it's really the cure for content burnout. So I'm going to jump in, I'm going to make some assumptions and do some other things to get the party started, and then we'll go into some of the sustainable content marketing. What we feel is that most of what you need is at your fingertips, and if you get a good look at it, you can tie the loose ends together and create a sustainable content marketing program that cures some of the content burnout. So as I jump in here, fighting with technology just a second, there's the slide I wanted. Is that now that we're friends, we've made our introductions, I want to make a few assumptions. One is that you have content, and you have a fair amount of content on your site, on your blog. You've got some people that write about you or write for you. You're in need of fresh content. Well, aren't we all really, right? So you also want everything else that we want in this digital space. You want traffic and leads and conversions, and at the end of the day, we need to light the lamp, as they say in hockey. We want to get some revenue. So those conversions lead to revenue. And really what we want when we think about leads, we all talk about leads. And I was working with a client the other day, and he said, the last agency we had, he said my lead volume went up, but they're just buying lists and throwing crappy leads into the funnel and making my sales team work harder. So the idea behind all of this is to make you and your brand stickier so that you get higher quality leads, and high quality content generates high quality leads and leads to high quality revenue at the end of the day. That's kind of our hope, right? All right. Now that we're friends and we've made some assumptions, we need a couple of things. And this is where I'm going to ask you to sort of look over your shoulder at what you're working on and think about goals and objectives and strategy. So it's what are you working on? What's the goal? What do you want to accomplish? How much of it do you want to accomplish? And what measurement means? What does success look like, right? And what's our strategy? How are we getting there? So I always use the weight loss example. My goal is I want to lose weight. How much weight do I want to lose? Personally, I'd love to lose 15 pounds over the next 90 days. My strategies are to go to the gym and consume fewer calories. My measurement, I screwed something up there. Sorry, I'm reading the slide incorrectly, folks. Okay. So my measurement is to go to the gym 5 days a week and count 1,900 calories a day. And if I can do those things, I think that I can lose 15 pounds in 3 months. So as I think about content marketing or really any other project that we're working on, we've got to have goals and objectives. Now, what I see in your businesses is that you've got campaign goals, you've got departmental goals, you've got group goals, and even company goals. So if you think about those things and you think about those goals, let's match this stuff up. Think about what your department is tasked with. How many leads do you need next year? So match the program to that set of goals and try and work from there. All right, sorry. I'm almost there with the technology. Okay, So now we're gonna dive back into sustainable content marketing. Now that we've made some assumptions and we understand some things, we're going to talk about the sun. What we view the sun as here is shining light on our existing content. You've got content all over your website, and you've been writing content for several months or several years, and there's probably a fair amount of content there. And most of that content is centered around a variety of themes, your products and services, lifestyle stuff, the different things that your organization does. You've got content out there. And what we see the sun as is shining a light on this content so that we can harvest that content and understand what we have, because we can use that stuff again. We can use parts of it. We can use all of it. But the idea is that if we don't know what we have and what we've created, well, we can't really leverage that stuff. So it comes down to identifying and inventorying the content. You may have thousands of pieces of content on your site. You may have hundreds. But if you don't know what it is and why it was created, then you can't leverage it as part of what we're doing here. So if you think about it, do an inventory of your content and identify what's there, get the URL, what the title of it is, and what keywords you may have been targeting. And think about platforms to do this, right? You can leverage BrightEdge certainly to see what those pages are and what they're doing. You can grab the information there, but build that inventory. It's a spreadsheet, right? It's a working spreadsheet. It's a living document. And you can use that to identify what content assets you have at your disposal as you get into some of the other stuff we're going to talk about. So then we think about these 3 R's, right? We always think about recycling and the 3 R's. I've manipulated the 3 R's just a little bit here for my purposes, of course. But if I think about it, we've got reuse, repurpose, and recycle. So when I think about reusing content and I think about my content marketing strategy, I think about from the creation of content and putting new content assets live on the web for my prospects, my customers, and anybody out there looking. I also go all the way back to the tail end of my marketing automation funnel so that I have content there as well. So I'm thinking about my content in your standard marketing stages, right? Awareness, consideration, and decision. What we fail to do often in practice is to match the two ends of a campaign. Now, some people do it really, really well. And that's where some of this comes from, is understanding how people tie the front of a campaign all the way to the back, because that relevancy from the content at the start to the finish is what creates the higher quality lead and the higher quality opportunity for your business. So if we think about reusing content, I'm going to borrow links, I'm going to borrow passages, and I'm going to use that stuff. So I think about reuse. I think about if I'm doing an analytics push as a marketing campaign, I might have published 10 or 15 analytics posts or a case study or white paper over the course of the last 12 months. Why don't I wrap up some of that and use it in my marketing automation when I send follow-up emails, giving people additional information there. But if I haven't inventoried that, I don't know that it's there that I can use it. So that's a reuse option, right? Repurposing stuff. Turn it into something else. We've heard, and if you listen to Joe Pulizzi, he says, one piece of content is capable of becoming 8 assets. A piece of content can be a blog post, an article, a case study. It can be a tweet. It can be a Facebook post. You can publish some stuff on LinkedIn and start conversations. So you can make a video. You can make an infographic. There's so many different things you can do with this content. And oftentimes we do 1 or 2 of those things and we think we're done. But if you think about that content asset, and this is something you can track. We don't do this as much, but to see what sort of assets you've developed from your content. If you're into that sort of tracking, to say, okay, I wrote this blog post, what else have I done with it? Now your social media calendars and content calendars capture some of that, but to really know at an inventory level, that might be something cool you can do too. And then when you've got this stuff and you built it, you're now in the land of sustainability. You built this inventory, you know what's going on. Everything new that gets published gets added to the inventory. You keep a date for when you published it, so you know what's there. And when you start a new campaign, you can go look at your inventory and you can grab the content that you need from the inventory, or you can slice and dice it. Okay, what do we have? What's available? What are my assets? And then you can build the campaign using some of that stuff. So maybe you don't have to write a really, really long case study the next time. Maybe you can borrow from these 2 or 3 things that you've created before and turn it into that. And then you can also use that stuff within the case study or within some of the follow-ups. That's going to create the relevancy that we need. So I hope you think it's pretty cool stuff so far. Let's go ahead and move on. We'll dip in a little bit more. What we like to do is think matrix first, calendar second. And everybody has been told, and this is the drum that gets beat in content marketing, is you have to have a content calendar. Have to have a content calendar. There's a reason that the matrix here is larger than the content calendar, because the way we see it is that our matrix defines the calendar. And if we don't have the matrix, so by example, this is a campaign matrix, and I had to fit the screen, so I cut some things out, but it's the idea that I've got my stages of the marketing funnel on the left side, and I've got what content I'm using in each of those buckets along the way. I can now understand what I have. So if this isn't my analytics campaign, but work with me here. If it was my analytics campaign, again, I might have all of this stuff listed out for my analytics campaign. And what I would be able to do is identify gaps or opportunities, if you will, for where I need to pick and plug content. So I go back to my inventory. I look at what analytics articles I have. I have to see if anything's valuable, right? I'm not just filling holes to fill holes. If I need to write a piece of content, well, absolutely, I'm going to write the piece of content. But chances are that you're going to have something sustainable in your inventory that you can borrow from to fill one of these gaps. From the matrix comes the calendar, because then that's where I'm tying different teams together, right? Now, you may be a one-woman band, and you may own the content on the front end of the website. You may own all the outreach. You may own the social media and the marketing automation, and bless you if you can handle all those things and do it well. That's some tough work there. But typically these are groups or small teams, and oftentimes they're siloed off. Sometimes the people who create content on the front end don't really get to interface with the marketing automation folks on the back end, and then social media is sort of somewhere in between. Those are our noisemakers here. So it's the idea of the calendar being that joint communication device between the teams so that everybody knows what the score is. So if I'm looking ahead 2 weeks on my content calendar, I can go reach out to Susie in the social media group, or she's a subject matter expert, and Susie owes me some content for this if I have to plug one of those holes still. Well, I can remind Susie that it needs to happen. Or the social media team knows that they're on from Wednesday through Friday to help promote something I'm doing, because we've decided that we're going to do some sponsored content, and we decided that social media needs to amplify this stuff because the timing is just right. The calendar keeps us all in check. Yes, you can put project plans together and task lists. I'm not saying that doesn't apply here, but the calendar is what everybody can look at. It's quick, it's easy. They can do a stare down, and they can figure out what they need to do. So enough about the sun for now. We're going to move on, but before we do, we'll do a quick case study on insurance. And this is where we've mined content for a large insurance carrier, and we were working with them. So they had created several hundred pieces of fresh content, and they wanted to connect that stuff with legacy content. So we were tasked with mining for that legacy content and repurposing some of that content to grow the traffic portfolio for this part of their business. And through the repurposing of that content, and I'm going to be honest here, we have an SEO engagement as well, and that I'm certain it helped. As we all know, SEO is very, very helpful. We drove an increase of 380% in the target terms and the target pages we had there. So it's the idea of adding 1 + 1 = 3 in this case, because we tied the fresh content to the legacy stuff, and we created a lot of noise around it. All right, everybody still with me? We're going to go ahead and move on to talk about the wind side of this thing. If you're keeping up with my analogy, sun, wind, and water. The wind, this is where we make noise, okay? It's pretty simple. The wind is the power. If I think about this, and I think about every piece of my content as a little paper airplane, if you will. If I have no wind, my paper airplane is not going to go very far. If I have a lot of wind, my paper airplane should carry a long way, ideally, right? The aerodynamics of most of my paper airplanes mean they crash, but hopefully you make better paper airplanes than I do. So if we think about the wind, this is the support we need for our content. This is social media. This is tying stuff together and aligning our content needs with our social media outlets. Where are you posting? Who are you talking to? What does your audience look like? And matching those things up. We think and we write, and we've had this problem internally at BFO for some time, is that we've written to a very technical audience at times, but generally the decision makers that we're working with, as far as new clients go, aren't the technical specialists. So you've got to match your content to the audience. It's not to say we shouldn't write technical stuff and shouldn't mine for it as well. It's that we need to figure out who the key people in our audience are, and are they the technical folks, are they the management folks, or are they the executives? And you get to understand that. If you've all done some audience development and figuring out who your customers are, you get to target your content. We'll talk a little more about that later. So if we think about this wind being more than just hot air, it is that we've got three pieces to this that we really like to use. We've got the social media piece. I've talked about that. You're all busy in social media. One of the most important things there is mapping that, aligning with your social media team. It's not to say that they're not doing other stuff in social media. You've got community management, you've got engagement, you've got Q&A going on in social. Absolutely keep doing that stuff. This is just one more little thing to do in social media to help drive more revenue, more leads, more revenue. Influencer campaigns. Influencer networks are growing tremendously. There's great opportunities to find people to write content for you, publish content on your behalf, test your products, and say nice things. And generally, it doesn't cost you money. It's usually a horse trade these days since Google lowered the boom several years ago. And then finally is sponsored content. If we've got good stuff, why not show it to more people? So we'll dive in a little bit and talk about these three things. So social media. Okay, I'm going to assume everybody sort of gets that. I'm not going to spend too much time on it. Fair? Okay, keep moving. Cool breeze of influence. The idea that this influencer marketing is out there. Some folks are really easy to identify. Others are harder to identify. And when we think about agencies in the influencer space, there are some really, really cool things going on to identify and or engage influencers. So if you've got a brand, you might be able to leverage a company, let's say Influencing Company or Tap Influencers, some of these folks, and they might be able to help you promote or amplify your message. And if you've got somebody who has a ton of authority in social, got a great blog and they've got a great Twitter following, those are people that can benefit your brand. Of course, there's got to be a match, right? I'm going to make a Justin Bieber reference, but I can't. It didn't hit me. I lost it, so apologies. I might have made a joke instead, and that one left too. But these agencies that are out there, the interesting thing about the agencies in this space, that they're different types of agencies, so it's understanding what you want. There's technology in the space that will help you reach out and identify influencers. You can go it's a software, it's a monthly service subscription. You can get a list of influencers in certain spaces, websites, and authority, and I'll show you an example in a moment. You can leverage content networks. Content networks are influencers that want to write, and you can dive into some of these content networks, and you can get the content written by influencers, and you can get it published there, so you can tap into the networks that way. And then there's agencies that represent influencers. And if you're thinking of folks who might be influencers, think about, and I'm going to make examples of people that most of us know, like Guy Kawasaki or Gary Vaynerchuk. Some of these folks list themselves through agencies as influencers. So you go to an influencer agency and you get access to Katy Perry or to Justin Bieber or to Gary Vaynerchuk or to Guy Kawasaki. But if you think about some of the other folks in this harder to identify category that's on this page, they're tougher to find. And you're not going to go to an influencer agency because that's sort of your A-listers, unless you really want Guy Kawasaki to promote your product, which if you do, cool. I don't have any clients with products or services that sort of match the Guy Kawasaki persona. But if I did, I'd probably think about finding a way for Guy Kawasaki to be an influencer for me. Now, if I think about those other folks, the consultants in here and some of these user groups and other people who are influential, I might want to use tools and technology to get me there. I might want to jump into one of these technologies that's going to give me a list of sites and it's going to score them and tell me how cool stuff is. So that's food for thought in terms of building out this middle piece of your sustainable content strategy. Who are the influencers? Where are they? The tools, technology, and agencies here can make your life easier in order to get your influencers out there and understand who they are. You're going to have to do most of the engagement yourself. You're going to have to figure out who they are. This is a good place for me to talk about earning your social equity. So when we think about social media and we think about getting to know somebody in social, they say that we have to give up social credit to earn social respect or social equity. And the line in the sand is 8 social credits gives you social equity with that user or that influencer. So think about that. How do you earn social equity? Well, I take my social credits and I follow you on Twitter. I retweet your stuff. I read a blog post, I make a comment on a blog post, you publish something on LinkedIn Pulse, and I go out there and I like it or I comment on that. That's the kind of credits that we're paying into, and that's the kind of equity we're trying to build. Once you've reached a certain point in that social equity, you can then reach out to Guy Kawasaki and ask him possibly for a favor. He might say yes, he might say no, he might redirect you a little bit, but you're still having that conversation. You're following him, and it's become a friendly relationship. Think about the folks you know on Twitter that you didn't know before Twitter. Some of these folks are influencers. Some are following you because you have great things to say. Some of those folks can become your influencers. So think about that and how you tap into these networks. Quick example, this is a spreadsheet that I was sent by one of the agencies that we work with in the influencer space. Of course, I've redacted the name of the website and the URL, but we get this, and then we can match that up with our needs at the time, and we can decide who we might want to tap into and for what around the different needs of our clients. So as you can see, this is certainly Thanksgiving, Rosh Hashanah, and Halloween. It's very timely, and it's a good time for us to be reaching out to some of these people if they're a match. So then we'll go do the due diligence and we'll chase that. So this is an example of what some of the folks provide, and you can start cultivating these lists to find new friends. And you can go out. The other thing that you'll get is you'll get Twitter handles, you'll get LinkedIn profile pages, you'll get all this stuff that you can then go out in social media, and you can identify people and you can get to be friends. Last but not least here, and it's a short slide, I'm going to talk a bit about it. It's the idea of sponsored content or sponsored posts. Now, we've seen it in LinkedIn, we've seen it in Facebook. There are all sorts of other content platforms we can talk about, but I'm going to stick to sort of the LinkedIn, thinking that we're largely a B2B. Now, if we're doing some e-commerce stuff and we have a content in play, Facebook might be an option for us if we want to drive traffic. And if we're more that end user or B2C, Facebook might be a better option. But they're very, very similar in the idea that I'm putting my content in the news feed or the stream of the user. And if I've got high quality content that's a hook, top 10 reasons why X, or case study on this, if you've targeted your audience appropriately and thinking about who your audience is, if you're targeting that mid-level manager, let's say that director or VP level, you're targeting that person in LinkedIn, you can generally get pretty darn close. We've had a client recently said, I want to target everybody in the greater Chicago and Milwaukee areas who works at an organization with 500 or more people and has a job title in HR or in finance. And that's perfect, right? I can target who those people are, and I can create a campaign in LinkedIn, and I can put my targeted content toward those people. Now, what I have to do is make sure that I'm targeting that content appropriately. So if I'm selling an HR platform, in this case, and I'm promoting it, what I want to do is make sure that I've got the hiring managers, I've got the folks in the HR department, and then I've got the C-suite. All of these people are interested because they can save money and time by doing this. They can improve the employee retention rate. They can reduce the overhead cost of hiring because people last longer and they're hiring the right people. So there's great benefits to the technology. But if I'm targeting the C-level and I'm writing content for the hiring manager, well, I've mismatched. I want to make sure I match those things up in LinkedIn, which is why back on the matrix slide, you saw 3 different line items for awareness, because we may have 3 different targets in there within our funnel. Now, it wasn't highlighted that way, but I maybe have awareness campaign for that hiring manager, one for that HR person, and another one for the C-suite, because all of those people might be instrumental in making a decision. Now, listen, I may not have the resources to light up all 3 of those streams. I need to figure out who is going to be my primary first, especially if you've got limited resources. Figure out who that one is that you want, and then hedge your bets to number 2. So if I think about those 3 roles in selling this, I would hedge my bets toward the C-level and the HR director. And I would squish my content between those 2, hoping that I can attract and educate those people, because that's who's going to write the checks, that's who's going to sign it. So that's who we really want to engage with. Now, truth be told, oftentimes the HR manager will ask somebody junior on their team to go out and do some homework. Now, in a perfect world, when they go out and do the homework, the manager has said, these are the criteria I need, go look at these things. But generally, you still want to talk to that manager or that C-level, depending on what you've set your audience types to. All right, enough of that sponsored content. Seriously, though, spend a few bucks out there sponsoring your content. You'll get amazing results if your campaigns are tied together from end to end. Quick study in retail. Our good friends at Arizona Tile have engaged in social media plus sustainable content program. And since last year, they've had almost 140% increase in social referral traffic of people clicking through on links and ads, et cetera. And year to date this year, almost 90% growth in traffic. So again, a case that says this stuff works, and the alignment is really, really key. If I'm promoting content on one side and it doesn't match with what I'm putting on my website, and my marketing automation message is sideways too, I'm going to have some trouble converting those users. So get this stuff right, and it's going to pay serious dividends. All right, moving into the third and final phase of our sustainable content marketing program is water. And quick backstory, this is a really cool platform that we're using today.
Yeah, I'm just helping Eric with the web back, so that's a listen.
Ivan, I believe you're not muted. Apologies, folks. That's our technical back end there. So the third and final here, and what I was going to say is that I had some animated GIFs in here, but this platform doesn't support them, so the deck might be missing a little of the Steve personality. If you've seen me speak before, you know I put some funnies in here and I have some fun with some things. The Snoopy image was one of those things, my ode to. Was it Bette Midler who sang that song? Probably. Anyway, moving on to water. Water's where we pull everything through, right? We've created good content. We're making noise in social media and pushing stuff. We're amplifying our message. Well, on the back end of this thing, we've got water that really is our funnel. The flowing water is that person who's now at some point traded their contact information for a great piece of content that you've written and produced. So whether it's that top 10 list, or it's a download of a content marketing calendar, Matrix probably is better, but it's a download or something, you've traded. They said, wow, that's really interesting. I'm willing to give up my email address for that. And that's where the back end of this starts in understanding what happens, right? Once I have that little bit of information, that's where water begins. Water becomes my email follow-ups, my remarketing, because now I can build remarketing lists based on those email addresses. I can target that stuff, put remarketing on my website and leverage that. And then marketing automation is where sort of the bee makes honey, if you will, in our example, because that's where we have the opportunity to take these contacts and nurture them all the way through to real sales opportunities. And I'm going to take a moment to talk about language and marketing automation in a minute, because we need to make sure we speak the same language in marketing automation. So many people think a lead is almost anything that's in that funnel from end to end. So we're hopefully, you guys can pick your own language, but we'll clear some of that up later. So water goodness. So water is really where I look to create fusion, when all three of these things come together. So I have to make one more assumption, and my assumption here is that sun and wind are working together wonderfully, meaning that my paper airplanes are going farther and faster than they ever have. My sun is providing that constant source of energy, right? I've got my inventory of my content, and now I know what's there. So when I get a new campaign, so let's say I move away from the analytics campaign and I want to do an SEO campaign, organic search campaign, right? I now know what content I have on my website, so I can go plan that campaign. That campaign is going to last 6 weeks or 6 months. I know what my content inventory looks like, and I can grab it. My wind, if I'm doing this and I'm doing it right and things are aligned, well, then the social media piece to plug into this is great, as long as I don't overwhelm my social media folks. If I have a couple of these campaigns running at a time, that shouldn't be too crazy on their part, but work with your social media folks or work with an agency and work that out. Make sense of that, because getting the right people in the right places is paramount to your success. And now water. Water is converting all of that for us into energy. So it's bringing that all the way through. All right. Waterfalls, waterfalls, waterfalls. I think about marketing automation, and marketing automation is really a waterfall, right? I get a contact, that contact gets nurtured along. I might collect more information about the prospect, and then at some point, that contact graduates into a lead. And I'll define that as a marketing qualified lead for our purposes here. So in my marketing automation suite, I go from contact to MQL. And then I graduate my MQLs to SQLs. They become sales leads. But SQLs are really MQLs that have been accepted, because we all know our sales team throws some stuff back. I don't have enough information. You haven't qualified them thoroughly. I'd like them to do more, or it just didn't work out, so they kick some back. So that's the distinction I want to make between contact. Contact is somebody giving me an email address. MQL is my marketing funnels and waterfalls have worked, and they've graduated to a level where we think they're sales ready. Sales then takes the SQL and takes the MQL and decides if it's an SQL, and they move the chains, if you will. So I think about that piece, and then I think about remarketing and all this. Again, I've got these lists I'm building. I'm leveraging all these email addresses. I'm going to go out and I'm going to target some ads to bring these people back. These are the people that sort of fall out of the funnel. Maybe they've gone dormant a little bit, but if I'm uploading a list and I'm targeting folks, I can bring them back. You can use some of the other stuff for remarketing too. There's a variety of different things you can use. Most of the marketing automation suites have tags now. We can remarket using the marketing automation suite. You can remarket with Google, AdWords, analytics, remarketing platforms. There's a whole host of things that we can do. And then that piece to me is a complement to the marketing automation piece. And on the marketing automation side, this is our land of our funnel. And the diagram here is meant to be simple, and it's not meant to be complex, because this is our funnel. This is what we want to do. And marketing automation fits into all of this. And you notice where I have a tract up there? That's the top of our funnel, but that's generally where we're publishing content to our website. That's the front end of this. But all these things are related. If I'm producing content that has nothing to do with what my marketing automation folks are doing, then I've got a problem. So this thing, and there's different content needs at every level. When I think about attraction and nurturing, or if you go back to the other marketing speak, it's awareness, consideration, and conversion or decision. But ultimately, we're trying to convert and engage these people. We're trying to make sense of this. And there's different types of content at each level. At the top level of Attract, that's my education stuff. But every one of those pieces is meant to tell you a little bit and hopefully give you a little bit about what I know and why we're thought leaders, why we might be subject matter experts, and hopefully gain a little mind share. Then the next one might get a little more granular or open up a little bit in terms of giving you more to offer. I'm bringing you through the funnel. I'm pulling you through this funnel, ultimately hoping that you're going to either A, give me enough information to become a marketing qualified lead, or B, choose to fill out a form that says, I would like to talk to sales. Because at the end of the day, that's really where we want to go. But you've got to give them options, and we can't be pushy in this. If we get pushy here, people push back, they opt out, and they go away. So we've got to be polite about this. If I find, and it's happened, and I'm sure it's happened to many of you as well, where you will find your way on somebody's list, and you will get an email a day until you turn it off. And I don't know about you, I find that annoying. I want to understand the cadence. If I'm going to sign up for something, I just signed up for the Life Hacker email list. They do a really nice job of asking you what groups you want to belong to so they can tailor the email message to you. So do they want to sell me something? Yeah, at the end of the day, they want me to buy something. But for the newsletter, they do a really nice job of letting me opt into different categories of content. So I'm going to get what I want. So the odds of me opting out are reduced significantly because they're giving me choices up front. I also know that they're only going to send me something on the schedule I want. I can opt for daily or weekly, or I don't know if monthly is a choice there, but I can let them know how often to bother me. It's kind of cool. If we think about that, think about what is good enough for your audience. Now, in some sales cycles, you may want to reach out more frequently. In others, it may be just a long nurture. Depends on your industry, and it's also worthy to test this stuff. How many emails can I send before I tick people off? How many emails should I send and to get more people converting? There's all sorts of testing and targeting we can do within those platforms as we look at that. And really, when I'm thinking about the content and the sustainability of my content when I'm using these things, the sustainable content is my messaging. So generally, we see workflows of 3 or 4 follow-up emails when somebody gives us their contact information. So Susie will submit her email address, and I'll send a thank you first. And then I'll set expectations and say, Susie, thank you for joining, or thank you for your interest in our analytics case study. Just to let you know, over the next couple of weeks, we'll send you a couple of other messages and hopefully provide you some more information. If you do want anything else, please feel free to reach out directly. So then we've set expectations with Susie. We're not intrusive. I'm not sending her an email a day. So then maybe a week later, maybe 2 weeks later, I'll send Susie another note. My note is intended to pull her back through the funnel. So what am I doing? I've got to exchange more value for information here. Susie's probably not ready to become a customer, but I want to know more about who Susie is. I can ask a few questions. I can do a little profiling to find out what size company Susie works for, what her job title is, what her role in the organization is, what she's looking for, how long does she make a purchase, and what product is she interested in. But we realize with Susie, I need to provide value. I can't just ask Susie to fill out the form. We've all done that for a living at one point in time or another, and most people don't fill out the form. So if I think about Susie, I want to bring Susie along, but I've got to provide value. So maybe at some point I give Susie a working spreadsheet that she can use to grow her business. Maybe it's a survey. Maybe it's the next case study. Maybe it's just a group of consolidated articles on the topic. Maybe I'm even using third-party websites to share those links because some bloggers write great content on, let's use my analytics campaign again. I'm very comfortable adding third-party links to my emails because I'm the person who has Susie's email address and Susie's given me that trust. So she's going to trust me to send her good information. Now, I'm also going to trust a little bit that she's going to go read that Occam's Razor website and on analytics, and she's going to come back to my front door. Now, I can't guarantee that, but that makes me a good human, and it makes me help Susie more. And if I can help Susie more, I think she's going to be thankful for it, and she's going to, in perfect world, knock on our front door again at some point in time. So that's how we use this content. And you might even grab a chunk of content from one of those other articles that you found on your website. You may include that in your follow-up email to say, hey, have you considered this? Here's a great piece on that. Or you can even paraphrase or grab a chunk from somebody else's website. Just make sure you link to it. Make sure you give them credit. And you wrap your email around that. You're still talking to Susie. You're engaging Susie, you're nurturing Susie, and you're increasing trust between you and Susie. So now Susie is probably increasing her trust in you, her love for us, and the opportunity to convert her is increasing as well. But it doesn't mean we should go for the kill. At some point we're asking, and every one of these emails we're asking. It's usually something soft and saying, hey, if you'd like to talk to so-and-so, please go ahead and click here and fill out the form and we'll get back to you. But generally, we're trying to pull her along. If she decides to flip and fill out the form, that's great. At some point, though, I think we all sort of understand with marketing automation is that we have to figure out where the end of my conversation with Susie is when I stop sending emails. And I move her back to my general audience list instead of my analytics list. So I can work with Susie for a while. I might send her 3 or 4 messages, and in the 4th message, hey, Susie, this is the last message we're going to send on this. We don't want to be annoying. And that's one of the things you send is you make it about her. It's not about you. We all sell our products way too much. What we have to do is work with the user, solve their problems, right? They're looking for solutions. They're not looking for, hey, here's my latest and greatest product. Now, we have to put that stuff in there. But if we make this conversation about Susie the whole time, all the way from the front to the back, knowing who our audience is in Susie, I'm now in a position where Susie thinks I'm cool because I was polite about saying this is going to be your last message because we don't want to bother you, and we're gonna move you over to our general list. But hey, if we'd love you to talk to our sales team because you've shown a strong interest in this. No expectations, but maybe a 15-minute call just to see if we can answer any additional questions. If your sales team spends 20 minutes on the phone with Susie, who knows? Susie might actually reach a point where she says, you know what? I think I really do need this, even though I wasn't sure that I did. So leverage that stuff. And again, it all comes from having a common thread through all of this content that we're putting together. All right. So we're almost finished, folks. I hope your folks are eating lunch while you're listening to me and enjoying it. I myself had some Chipotle, and I was very, very happy. I'm looking forward to getting out of the office later and enjoying a fine Florida afternoon. So let's keep moving. I know your time is precious as well, so I won't tell you too much more about lunch in Florida. Our last case study here is for water. And this is an HVAC client, a residential HVAC manufacturer. And they came to us with a need. The need was traffic and leads. Pretty obvious need, right? So around that, we built some goals and objectives, and we figured out what success looked like. So our plan included creating content. They had developed their audiences already. They did a wonderful job of developing 2 personas for this campaign, and we created some content around that. We created some landing pages with them and some other stuff. This was strictly a paid media campaign, but it was all sponsored content. We wanted to put the content in front of the right people, the decision makers in their households, and we leveraged the back end of marketing automation, and we separated the funnels based on who those personas were. And what the results were pretty incredible, actually. This is a cool case study and a cool client, is that we generated 60,000 visits. Now, yes, we paid for those clicks, but 1,300 plus contacts out of those 60,000 visits. So we generated quite a few contacts for the client, and we increased their overall conversion rate from in a before and after sense, before they launched this campaign to after, of 800%. So if you think about the conversion rate, and that's revenue conversion rate, so they generated 800% more revenue than they did in the previous quarter, which was pretty astounding. And that's a really cool case study. I like the results on that, and what it does is it tells me how this all works together and how it all flows together. All right, we are just about finished. I'm going to go back to the start of where we began in terms of burnout. Where did we start? I'm not going to repeat these. Just going to ask you to think about it for a second. Were you doing content just for content's sake? Because I think we have a possible cure here for content burnout. Because at the end of this, you should be refreshed a little bit. You have the potential, by adding some of these components to your program, to reduce the resource requirements. I know there's going to be some heavy lifting up front. You've got to build a matrix. You've got to do the inventory. You've got to build the matrix. You've got to have content calendars. You need to get teams working together. But you should reduce the requirements on everybody if you're communicating effectively. You're relieving that pressure, right? You're able to keep up because you've got a plan in place. You've got this structure in place that says, hey, this is what we're doing next week, next month. It's wonderful. Technology, always going to be technology. Leverage what you have, improve workflows in marketing automation, whether you're using a platform to manage some of your paid spend on sponsored content, things like that. You can tame that stuff. That's always going to be there. You're not chasing trends anymore. You've got content. Now, listen, you're going to have to build fresh content along the way. It's just the nature of every business, right? You've got a new product or service, or the industry changes and you need to write on it. I'm not saying stop writing your content. It's the idea that you can now spend your time more wisely because you've got this inventory of content to use to be able to market to that same audience you were marketing before, but you're giving them more insight, more information. You're tying things together. I might just write an intro piece to say, hey, have you seen these articles? Here's what we think, I'm not rewriting an article. I'm not refreshing a post. What I might do is I might steal that post or two and put links into another blog post or article, and I might just say, here's what we think about this now. And you put a new date stamp on it. You're still driving traffic to those old pages, but you're leveraging the old content to educate the people and telling them what's changing. And then, if you weren't sure what's working, now you are. And you can use the platforms to track what's working. Think about BrightEdge. Think about Google Analytics. Think about even your paid media platforms. You can track a lot of this stuff. You can tag this stuff. You can track it. Your marketing automation suite has tracking in it. But do yourself a favor and set expectations for reporting up front. Now, this can change. Absolutely. It's a draft report. But set expectations for what you're going to report on so that you're not spinning your wheels looking at 3 or 4 data sources to find out how much money you spent on X, Y, or Z and what it led to, and then going to another reporting platform to find something else. Confirm what reports should look like with all the players on the team. Now, I agree that departmentally, people are going to have to look at different reports, right? My back-end folks are absolutely going to be looking at my Pardot reports or my HubSpot reports. And my social media folks are absolutely going to be staring down my Facebook or LinkedIn ad spend and some of the details and metrics there. But if you agree as a team on what the roll-up report looks like, you're going to get a lot more out of this thing. All right. Now we're really almost finished. I'm going to wrap it up here. So if we wrap it up and we think about the sun, the wind, and the water, what I want you to do is start small and start smart. But you really just have to start. You just, instead of just writing content because you need to put 10 articles on the website in a month, think about what those articles are for and start aligning this stuff. If you can't do it all the way all the time, pick one campaign and go out and inventory just the stuff that's there for that subject. And then on the wind side of things, I think I've said it enough times. I'm not going to say it again. It's just that you get this stuff right and you communicate with those teams, and there's huge payoff. And then, be intentional but not annoying is something I like to say, is that, you can poke people. It's marketing automation. It's social media. You can poke people a little bit. They'll tell you when you've poked them too much. On the marketing automation side of things, let's tune this thing up. Let's build out multiple workflows. They don't have to be crazy complicated, but let's leverage the tool for what it's there for. What we find when we jump onto marketing automation projects is that somebody will spend easily 5 figures on marketing automation, and they will not do anything with it. They'll use it to replace their cheetah mail, and that's what they're doing, instead of leveraging the performance of the platform. So take a look at what's going on there and leverage that stuff. And then finally, and this is something I talk about a lot, is align sales and marketing. Make sure that they've got shared goals, and make sure they're speaking the same language. With that, I swear I'm just about done, but I have something for you because I'm a nice guy. And I want data. I love data on this stuff. So if I can ask a favor, I will give to get. There's absolutely a hook here. I am willing to give away today 2 Amazon Echoes and 3 Echo Dots. And what I'm going to do is, for the first person to fill out the survey, it gets an Echo. And then everybody else who fills out the survey will be randomly entered to win the second Echo and the 3 Echo Dots. What is the survey, you ask? Well, there's also value in the survey. What I'm going to give you is a score of your sustainable content marketing efforts. You're going to fill out a quick survey. I believe it's 12 questions is where we netted out on it. 12 questions. And what we'll do is, after you filled it out, we're going to tabulate the results, and we'll send you the results next week. Not only are we going to send you the results for you and how you filled it out, and give you some advice on what you can do to add some things to the program, so that whether it's sun, wind, or water, that you can take some steps to improve those campaigns and those areas. The other thing we're going to do is we're going to collect the results across all the respondents, and we're going to share that with you to say, hey, this is how you're looking across sort of everybody. I don't know if we'll be able to really get industry stuff. There's a lot of you folks, but not a ton of statistical significance there. So I don't want to draw too many conclusions, but I do want to share the data. So if you follow the link here, or if you download the deck later, and you can click to win, fill out the survey for me, and I want to give you a prize. I want to get the data, because I want to see how things are working for you guys, and what I want to be able to do is help you fix that. In terms of just giving you guys some free advice after you fill this thing out. We're going to look at all the results, and everybody's going to get an email back with their results and the overall results. So please take a moment and fill that out. All right, I said I was done, but I was almost done. My last is a plug for BrightEdge Share 16. Fabulous conference. Come see BFO at Share 16. Say hello. I would love to get to know you. I'd love to shake your hand, have a cocktail. We'll be there. We're speaking. We'll be hanging out for the entire time. You'll see us around. I'm not sure if we'll be wearing the orange blazers or not this year. We may change it up a little bit, but if you see an orange blazer, it might just be us. But certainly stop by and say hello. And then last but not least, we are done. You can download the deck. It's on SlideShare if you'd like. And I'm done with the presentation at this point. I believe, if time is right, I've got about 10 minutes to answer any questions. So, Eric, I would like to give you back the microphone to see if we have any questions to answer today.
All right, Steve, thanks for the presentation. It was wonderful. I loved the topics, and I love the analogy of the renewable, recyclable industries. A couple questions have come in while you were speaking, and let's jump right in. Can you explain how you determine what content is targeted toward what job title?
Oh, cool question. The idea is that we internally, there's a sales philosophy called proactive selling, and some of the terminology there lends itself to figuring out your users as language speakers, just because it helps out. So we look at sort of the technical folks as Spaniards. We look at the mid-level managers, that director and VP level. We look at them as Greeks, and then we look at the C-suite as Russians. And what we'll do is we figure out what language each speaks. So if we think about it at that technical level, they want to know how your tools work, right? They want to know if you have this feature and that feature. If I move up a level to the manager, they're the value-based person, right? They're looking at, okay, how much money am I spending and what's going to be my return on this investment? Am I going to make money? And then if I move up to the final level, that's the benefit. If I'm talking about the CXO, it's the benefit level. They want to know what you're doing for their business or their brand overall. So if you think about the message, I'm not going to target the CEO of this organization with all of my features. Now, they might be interested in some to solve some of those problems, but that CEO wants to know how you're going to solve their bigger problem and how you're going to increase market share, how you're going to improve brand awareness. So think about your messaging in that way in targeting your audience.
All right, next question. In what ways should I use BrightEdge to enhance my content marketing?
In all ways you possibly can is sort of the short story. I mean, it sounds like a setup question in some ways, but it's the idea that BrightEdge allows you to track what you're doing. If you publish something, you can see what's going on. You can understand what's happening in terms of the reports that you can get from your content and how you're targeting and what is going on out on the web. You can pull a lot of that stuff. So while I don't have any specific reports in mind, the platform is incredible. We used to call it an SEO intelligence suite, but we've changed that because it's really it's more than that, and it gives you so much insight into how not just your site and your SEO is performing, but really how your content is performing. So we use it extensively as a tool to track our content performance.
Where can I get more information on the content matrix and how to chart content onto the matrix?
You see that email address I put in this slide? You can send me an email, and you can do that. I'm happy to have a chat or just send you a copy of a content matrix that you can play with.
I have a ton of content on my site and can't inventory it all. Do you have any shortcuts?
Good for you. You've got a ton of content. First answer. Shortcut, if I had to come up with one, would be pick a campaign. So if you are selling analytics again, go look for all your analytics articles. Start small. Go grab some of that stuff. And even if you can't inventory it all because you've got deadlines, go inventory a bunch of it. But build out your inventory spreadsheet because that's going to be one of your best friends.
What is the average and right number of people for a content marketing effort?
Good question. It really depends on the size and shape of your organization. It's, depending how much content you need to create and how many leads you need to generate, I think it's a factor of what your goals are. So if the business needs to grow 100% lead volume over the next 12 months, then take a look. And if you're sitting alone in a room and you need to go from 10,000 to 20,000 leads in a year, then you've got your work cut out for you. So, this is where an agency can help, where you can get resources across a variety of competencies to help you expand your program. So if you're tasked with something like that, you should certainly ask around and see what people think in terms of resources, because odds are you're going to end up doing one thing really, really well or two things well, and something's going to fall off if you're trying to do it with too few resources.
Is there a content attribution approach you recommend?
Ooh, wow. That's an interesting one. And think about attribution and attribution modeling and how far it's come and how far attribution needs to go. But what I like to do is to understand and build campaigns around my content so I can understand where it's engaged and where people are using it. So if it's on my site, obviously I'm going to tag it. It's going to be easy. Third-party websites gets a little tougher. Sometimes we can get them to tag. If we give them a click-through URL, we can tag with a campaign. So I like the attribution there. I look at content, at least in these different phases of my content marketing funnel, if you will. On the front end, where I'm creating awareness, I'm going to look at that as sort of first-click content, and then the other stuff should be drawing people through in terms of attribution. I've got first click, everything in the middle, and last click. And when they finally fill out that lead form or say, hey, please call me, that's that last click attribution, right? So we say they're done. So it's interesting to study it from end to end to see how many people are engaging and at what levels, because if you're dropping off in the middle, you know, two or three pieces in, right, in your funnel, and you see a significant drop off, well, you're staring at this, you're looking at the click path. And maybe not true attribution, but you're looking at the click path to say, wow, I've got a problem at step 3 or step 4 where nobody's engaging with this piece or this content. So I've got something wrong there. So I might actually flip that from attribution to click path, because, and again, I mean, attribution plays a role too, because if I'm sponsoring content, I want to know if it was a paid click or if it was an organic click and things like that. So they should coexist. There's a lot of data you can get. And again, it comes back to building that reporting model up front so you understand what you're staring at and why.
All right. My business is very focused on instant gratification. What sort of time frame should I use to set expectations on the time and return on investment in content?
Content itself, in terms of investment, is a long play. I think it's a lot like SEO in that regard, is that you have to be in it for the long haul, and you've got to be creating fresh content or fresh ideas so that you can grow visibility and grow awareness, and think of it as the long play. You're not going to get instant gratification from content. Now, where that changes a little bit is that if you do have quality content, you can use sponsored posts to generate those clicks. It's a lot like how we used to use or still use paid media, right? If I think about SEO as that slow drip, where paid search is that I can turn the faucet on full in a heartbeat. So you can look at sponsoring content in a very similar way.
All right. Here's another question. How can I avoid duplicate content issues when repurposing and regurgitating content?
Use pieces is the best way to go about it, and also cite your sources. I know a site, they're friends, not clients, but they republish a whole host of content from Wikipedia. And now they're not the first person for the content, but it's certainly useful and engaging for their audience. So they cite Wikipedia, and Google's happy about it because they're citing Wikipedia. They cite the source. And I wouldn't worry too much about duplicate content unless you're really plagiarizing somebody else's content. And if you're doing that, well, stop. But otherwise, you can repurpose and reuse your own content, but I wouldn't use the entire passage or the entire article.
Yeah, Steve, I think the question might be about technical SEO and using rel canonical. If you have content and you're going to use versions of it, you can use the rel canonical to point to the origin source to avoid Google seeing it as duplicate.
Good call. Good call. Thank you for chiming in there, sir.
All right. We are out of time. We want to thank everybody for joining us here today. Look for new webinars coming up in the coming weeks, and please join us at Share 16 in October in San Francisco. Thanks very much, everybody. Bye-bye.